Have you ever wondered what would happen if the fate of millions rested in the hands of someone you've completely overlooked? For Elaine Winters, a 52-year-old administrative assistant at the Pentagon, invisibility had become both her greatest strength and her deepest wound. But in the next 72 hours, her anonymity would crumble and the world would learn her name. "Bar coffee, black, 2 sugars," muttered Colonel James Hargrove, dropping his request on Elaine's desk without making eye contact. 23 years she'd worked in this office, and still the high-ranking officers breezed past her like she was part of the furniture. She adjusted her simple grey blazer and nodded, though he was already disappearing behind his office door. The early morning light filtered through the narrow windows of the Pentagon's E-ring, casting long shadows across Elaine's meticulously organized workspace. Family photos were conspicuously absent. Just one small frame tucked beside her monitor showed a younger Elaine in military uniform, Lieutenant Elaine Winters, Nuclear Missile Electronic Systems Specialist, Minot Air Force Base, 1998, a lifetime ago. "Morning, Elaine," said Dr. Maya Chen, the Defense Department's leading nuclear strategist, one of the few who acknowledged her presence. "Ready for the chaos? The Secretary's briefing is in 30 minutes. Elaine smiled, sliding a folder across the desk. "Your notes are tabbed by priority. I highlighted the discrepancies in the Russian deployment numbers." Maya's eyebrows rose. "You caught that? The analysts missed it completely." "I just organize things," Elaine said, her standard deflection. 23 years of listening, observing, and filing away the nation's most sensitive secrets had made her a vault of classified information. Information that protocol said she shouldn't even comprehend, let alone analyze. The office hummed with tension. Relations with Russia had deteriorated rapidly in recent weeks, with their newest hypersonic missile system deployed to the Kaliningrad enclave, minutes from striking NATO capitals. Elaine's monitor displayed multiple classified email chains, strategic assessments, readiness reports, and deployment orders, all passing through her for distribution. At 9:42 a.m., her secure phone line rang. "This is Watch Officer Reynolds at Strategic Command. Authentication code Sierra November 359er. We need immediate verification on the Secretary's Stratcom directive from this morning." Elaine's spine straightened. "One moment." She pulled up the directive, scanning the technical specifications with a practiced eye. "There's an inconsistency in the yield parameters for the submarine-launched options. Section 4 conflicts with the President's signed order." A pause on the line. "You're not cleared to interpret those documents, ma'am. I need to speak with Colonel Hargrove. He's in the briefing. I can get Dr. Chen." "No, this is time-sensitive." Elaine made a decision. "The correct yield parameters are in the President's order, page 2, paragraph 4. The Stratcom directive has the decimal point misplaced." Another long pause. "How do you know that?" The security door buzzed, and 4 men in suits entered, unfamiliar faces with visitor badges and hard eyes. The lead man scanned the room and locked onto Elaine. "We need the Broken Arrow file," he said, his voice low, leaning over her desk. "National Security Advisor's orders." Warning bells rang in Elaine's mind. There was no active Broken Arrow incident, the code for a nuclear weapons accident, and these men weren't following protocol. "I'll need to see authorization, sir," she said, her hand sliding beneath her desk to the silent alarm button. The man's smile tightened. "Check your secure inbox. Authorization code Tango Whiskey 716. Elaine glanced at her screen, fingers hovering over her keyboard as she pulled up the verification system. The code format was correct, but something felt wrong. The National Security Advisor was currently with the President in California. "The system's running slow today," she stalled, accessing a secondary verification protocol known only to a handful of people in the Pentagon. Her screen flashed red. Authentication failure. The man's hand slipped inside his jacket. "Mrs. Winters, we don't have time for this." The way he said her name, something clicked. These men knew exactly who she was, not just the invisible secretary, but the former lieutenant with level 9 nuclear clearance who had designed half the verification protocols still in use. The Stratcom officer was still on the phone. "Mrs. Winters, are you there?" "Sparrow alert," she whispered into the receiver. A decades-old duress code she prayed still worked. The leader lunged across the desk, but 23 years of Pentagon emergency drills kicked in. Elaine slammed her palm on the emergency lockdown button and kicked her chair back, tumbling away from the desk as the man's hand emerged with a matte black pistol. Alarms blared throughout the corridor. Steel barriers slammed down at every entry point, sealing the E-ring section. The intruder fired, the bullet shattering her monitor as Elaine rolled behind a filing cabinet. "You really should have stayed invisible, Elaine," the man called out, advancing around the desk. "You were supposed to be the nobody who just passed papers along." Security doors at both ends of the corridor burst open as Pentagon police tactical teams flooded in, weapons raised. "Drop your weapons!" On the ground now. Instead of surrendering, the 4 men pulled out badges. "NSA counterintelligence. We're containing a security breach." The tactical team hesitated, their weapons still raised, but uncertainty in their stance. Colonel Hargrove emerged from the briefing room, his face flushed with anger. "What the hell is going on out here?" The lead intruder turned smoothly. "Colonel, your assistant has been compromised. We have evidence she's been passing nuclear deployment information to Russian intelligence." Elaine's blood ran cold. This was a sophisticated play. Discredit her before she could expose them. Whatever they wanted, it was big enough to risk a false flag operation inside the Pentagon itself. "That's absurd," Dr. Chen said, stepping forward. "Elaine has been here longer than any of us," which gave her plenty of time to do damage, the man countered. "Colonel, we need to access her systems immediately. The NSA has detected anomalous data transmissions from this office." Hargrove's eyes narrowed. "Let me see that authorization." As the leader turned to show his credentials, Elaine caught sight of a small tattoo on his wrist, partially visible beneath his cuff. A double-headed eagle, Russian military intelligence. "He's grow!" she shouted. Colonel, they're after the new launch verification codes." The leader spun back, raising his weapon toward Hargrove, but the security team, sensing the shift, opened fire. The office erupted in gunfire and breaking glass. Elaine pressed herself against the wall as bullets tore through the partition beside her. When the shooting stopped, 2 of the intruders lay motionless on the floor. The other 2 were subdued, face down in handcuffs. Elaine slowly rose to her feet, her grey blazer dusty with drywall. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead. "You okay?" Colonel Hargrove asked, actually looking at her for what felt like the first time. "Yes, sir," she managed. He studied her with new eyes. "You knew they were after the verification codes. How?" Before she could answer, a secure phone rang at her desk, the red line directly to Strategic Command. With shaking hands, Elaine answered. "This is General Harrington at Stratcom. We have a situation. Moscow has just placed their strategic forces on high alert, claiming a coup attempt at their defense ministry. I need the president's nuclear response options prepped immediately." Elaine looked up at the circle of faces now all focused intently on her. "Sir," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her, "I believe this was just the beginning. These men weren't here for the current codes. They were here for the new authentication protocol being implemented tonight." She glanced at the unconscious intruders. "And I think their friends in Moscow are about to make their real move." Colonel Hargrove's phone buzzed. He checked the message, his face draining of color. "Multiple unknown submarines detected off both coasts," he said quietly, "moving at high speed toward launch depth." Everyone in the room looked at Elaine, the woman they'd walked past for years, suddenly the only person who might understand what was really happening. The woman behind the desk now held the keys to preventing nuclear war. The Pentagon's crisis action team room hummed with controlled chaos as officials rushed to their stations. Massive screens displayed satellite imagery of Russian naval movements, while others tracked American strategic assets. At the center of this storm stood Elaine Winters. Blood still dried on her temple, her grey blazer exchanged for a tactical vest with a security badge that had been hastily upgraded to the highest clearance level. "I still don't understand why they targeted you specifically," said General Marshall, the Joint Chiefs Chairman, studying Elaine with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. "There are dozens of officers with higher clearance, but none who understand the nuclear authentication systems as thoroughly," Dr. Chen interjected, pulling up Elaine's service record. Lieutenant Winters wasn't just any electronic systems specialist. She designed the original TACAMO emergency broadcast verification protocols in the late 90s. Elaine pointed to the screen showing submarine movements. "Those aren't Russian Boré-class subs. The sonar signature is wrong." Her finger traced the digital representation. "The propeller configuration is different. They're trying to mimic Russian submarines." "Then whose are they?" demanded Secretary of Defense William Porter, who had arrived moments earlier. "I believe they're Chinese Type 096, Elaine said, "modified to create a false flag." The room fell silent. "That's a bold claim," General Marshall said carefully. "If true, it suggests China is attempting to trigger a Russia-US nuclear exchange. While they sit back and inherit what's left," Colonel Hargrove finished grimly. Secretary Porter studied Elaine. "You've been an administrative assistant for over 2 decades. How exactly do you recognize Chinese submarine signatures?" Elaine straightened. "Sir, I was demoted in 1999 after reporting critical vulnerabilities in our nuclear command systems, vulnerabilities that would allow exactly this type of scenario. My superiors felt I was being alarmist, so they buried you behind a desk," Dr. Chen said softly. "But I never stopped monitoring," Elaine continued. "Every report, every analysis that crossed my desk, I've been keeping track. For 23 years. Secretary Porter's secure phone rang. His expression darkened as he listened. "The President has authorized DEFCON 2. Russian President Baranov is claiming they've detected our submarines positioning for a first strike." "It's happening," Elaine whispered. "Just as I predicted in my 1999 report. A cascading misinterpretation event." "What do you recommend?" Porter asked, all pretense gone. "We need to break protocol," Elaine said decisively. "The standard verification channels are compromised. Those men knew too much about our systems." She moved to a secure terminal and began typing rapidly, her administrative persona falling away completely. "I'm accessing the emergency action message architecture," she explained. "There's a back-channel verification system I built that was never fully decommissioned." Colonel Hargrove leaned over her shoulder. "That's not in any of our current protocols." "That's the point," Elaine replied without looking up. "It can't be compromised if it's not in active documentation." Her fingers flew across the keyboard, inputting commands that bypassed conventional security layers. On the main screen, a new communication channel opened directly to Stratcom's command bunker. "This is Secretary Porter. I need to speak with General Harrington immediately." When the general's face appeared on screen, Elaine stepped forward. "Sir, this is Elaine Winters. Authentication code, November Echo Victor 84 Bravo Tango. Execute Amber Glass Protocol." General Harrington's eyes widened. Amber Glass was decommissioned 15 years ago. "But the hardware is still in place," Elaine countered. "Or we need to directly authenticate with both the Russian Strategic Command and our submarine forces simultaneously, outside standard channels." After a tense pause, Harrington nodded, initiating Amber Glass. "What's your play, Mrs. Winters?" "Contact the Russian command bunker using the 1987 hotline frequencies. They're outdated, but still monitored. Send this message in their native authentication format." She handed a note to Porter, who passed it to the communications team. As they worked, Dr. Chen pulled Elaine aside. "There's something you're not telling us. How deep does this go?" Elaine lowered her voice. "The men who attacked weren't just after launch codes. They wanted access to the dead hand override." Chen paled. "The Russian automatic retaliation system. Why would they need our codes for that?" "Because we built a counter-system after the Cold War," a way to prevent accidental launch if their dead hand system malfunctioned. Only 3 people know about it. And you're one of them? Elaine nodded grimly. I wrote the software. The other 2 are the president and the Stratcom commander. Across the room, alarms blared. The satellite feed showed Russian mobile missile launchers emerging from their bunkers. They're dispersing their land-based ICBMs, General Marshall announced. Standard protocol before a potential first strike. Secretary Porter turned to Elaine. Your back channel isn't working fast enough. We need more time, Elaine insisted, moving to another terminal. I can trigger an emergency inspection of the authentication systems that would temporarily lock down our launch capabilities. You want to deliberately disable our nuclear response? Porter asked incredulously. That's treason if you're wrong. And the end of civilization if I'm right and we do nothing, Elaine fired back. Those submarines are accelerating to launch depth, but they're not Russian. If we respond as though they are, we trigger exactly what China wants. Porter hesitated, then nodded sharply. Do it, but if you're wrong, I know the consequences, Elaine said, entering a complex sequence of commands. The main screen flashed red. Emergency authentication review initiated. Launch capabilities temporarily suspended. Now we have 30 minutes, Elaine said. 30 minutes where we physically cannot launch, and neither can Russia if they receive our verification. Unless their dead hand system activates, Dr. Chen pointed out. That's why I need to get to Andrews Air Force Base immediately, Elaine said. The only dead hand override terminal is aboard the E-6B Mercury Looking Glass aircraft. Secretary Porter shook his head. The president would never authorize. His secure line rang again. After a brief conversation, he looked up, stunned. The president has ordered the E-6B to prepare for immediate takeoff with Mrs. Winters aboard. Colonel Hargrove stepped forward. I'm going with her. So am I, Dr. Chen added. As they prepared to leave, the room erupted in fresh alarms. The satellite feed showed a new development. Chinese naval vessels were now openly positioning themselves in the Pacific. Beijing is making their move, General Marshall said. They're positioning to take Taiwan while we're distracted with Russia. Elaine checked her watch. 27 minutes until our systems reactivate. We need to be airborne before then. As they rushed toward the exit, Colonel Hargrove caught her arm. One question, Winters. If you've known about this vulnerability for 23 years, why didn't you find another way to sound the alarm? Elaine's eyes hardened. I tried. I filed reports every year, spoke to inspectors general, congressional staffers, oversight committees. Eventually, I realized my best option was to stay exactly where I was, invisible but watching. And now, she looked around at the command center, at the faces now turned toward her with a mixture of hope and doubt. Now we find out if 23 years of invisibility was worth it. The Pentagon's helicopter pad roared to life as their transport prepared for emergency departure. Above them, storm clouds gathered over Washington, D.C., a fitting backdrop for the darkness that might soon engulf the world. From the helicopter window, Elaine caught a glimpse of the Lincoln Memorial in the distance, a reminder of another moment when the nation had stood divided on the edge of catastrophe. 3 minutes to take off, the pilot announced. On Elaine's secure tablet, a new alert flashed. Unknown cyber intrusion detected in nuclear command systems. The E-6B Mercury aircraft, America's nuclear command post in the sky, shuddered as it climbed steeply through turbulent storm clouds. Inside the converted Boeing 707's crowded command center, Elaine gripped her seat as emergency lighting bathed everything in an ominous red glow. "Direct hit on our satellite uplink," shouted the communications officer. "We're on backup systems." Colonel Hargrove steadied himself against a console. "Someone knows we're airborne. Who authorized that missile strike against our own satellite?" "No authorization," replied the aircraft commander, Major Daniels. "Chinese anti-satellite weapon. They're blinding our eyes." Dr. Chen studied the degraded satellite feeds still coming through secondary channels. Multiple Chinese naval groups are accelerating toward Taiwan. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Elaine unbuckled and moved to the aircraft's most secure section. a compact room housing the Dead Hand override terminal, a system so classified its existence had never been officially acknowledged. Her fingers flew across the specialized keyboard, entering credentials that hadn't been used in decades. Systems still active, she confirmed, but there's evidence of tampering. Someone's been probing these defenses. Outside the secure compartment, the command crew worked frantically to restore communications with Washington. Static crackled through the speakers as they caught fragments of Strategic Command's broadcasts. Russian mobile launches, high alert status, President Baranov demanding explanation, Chinese fleet movements, Taiwan, nuclear submarines at launch depth. Major Daniels joined Elaine at the terminal. Mrs. Winters, the President is asking if you can verify whether the Russian Dead Hand system has been activated. Not from here, she replied, eyes fixed on the screen. But I can determine if someone's trying to trigger it artificially. The override was designed to prevent accidental activation, but it works both ways. It can detect manipulation. She pulled up a complex diagnostic tool, its interface a relic from an earlier technological era. "Oh, there," she pointed to a cascade of anomalous data. "Someone's feeding false launch indicators into the Russian early warning system. They're trying to trick Dead Hand into believing a massive American first strike is underway." Dr. Chen leaned in. "Can you block it?" "Not directly, but I can send authenticated verification codes proving no launch has occurred." Elaine's hands moved with practiced precision, despite the decades since she'd last operated this system. "The problem is, I need direct connection to the Russian command bunker." Colonel Hargrove shook his head. "Standard communications are compromised. The Chinese have made sure of that." "Not all channels," Elaine countered. "There's the Contingency Emergency Broadcast System, CEBS, designed to function even during nuclear exchange. That system requires presidential authorization," Major Daniels objected. "Not if initiated from this terminal," Elaine said quietly. The aircraft lurched as another wave of turbulence hit. Outside the armored windows, lightning flashed across the darkening sky. "You're talking about bypassing presidential authority," Hargrove said, his voice low. "I'm talking about preventing nuclear war," Elaine replied sharply. "We have 17 minutes until our missile systems reactivate. If I don't establish direct contact with Russian command by then, the cascade begins. They launch, we launch, civilization ends." "Doctor," Chen placed a hand on Hargrove's arm. "James, she's right. The protocols exist for normal situations. This isn't normal." After a tense moment, Hargrove nodded. "Do it. I'll take responsibility." Elaine accessed the CEBS, initiating a sequence that hadn't been used since its testing phase during the late Cold War. The system hummed to life, generating an ultra-low frequency transmission designed to penetrate any electromagnetic interference. "Channel opening," she announced. "Sending authentication now." On the main screen, cryptic acknowledgement codes appeared, the Russian system responding. Major Daniels' eyes widened. "They're receiving." "Now I need to convince them," Elaine said. She began typing rapidly, sending technical data that only genuine nuclear command systems could produce, proving the absence of American launches. The aircraft rocked violently as nearby lightning struck. Several systems briefly went offline before backup power engaged. "We've lost primary radar," reported the tactical officer. "Switching to passive systems." Hargrove leaned over the sensor display. 4 high-speed aircraft approaching from the east, Chinese J-20 stealth fighters. "They're trying to shoot us down," Dr. Chen realized. "They know what we're doing." The pilot's voice came over the intercom, initiating defensive measures. "All personnel secure for evasive action." The E-6B banked sharply, its massive frame surprisingly agile as it descended into thicker cloud cover. The maneuver bought them precious moments as they awaited Russian response. "Still nothing," Elaine said, tension evident in her voice. "They should have acknowledged by now." On her screen, a new alert appeared, a direct message in Russian. "They want visual confirmation," she translated. They don't trust the data alone. Visual how? Hargrove demanded. We can barely see the clouds around us. Elaine's expression hardened with determination. The Looking Glass aircraft all have quantum-encrypted video capability. It was installed for presidential communication during nuclear events. She activated the system, a specialized camera designed to function through high radiation environments. This is Elaine Winters, authentication code Sierra Victor 984 Delta, she stated clearly as the camera recorded. I am transmitting from the United States Strategic Command Airborne Platform. I can confirm no American nuclear launch has been initiated. The submarine signatures you are detecting are Chinese vessels modified to mimic Russian Borei-class submarines. She continued, providing detailed technical specifications that only someone with intimate knowledge of both nations' systems would know. When she finished, she transmitted the video through the CEBS channel. Long seconds passed. 6 minutes until our systems reactivate, Major Daniels warned. The aircraft shuddered again as it executed another evasive maneuver. Proximity alarms blared. The Chinese fighters were closing in. Missile lock, shouted the tactical officer. They've fired. Countermeasures deployed, responded the pilot. The E-6B dropped chaff and flares, diving sharply as air-to-air missiles streaked past. The command center crew held on as the plane twisted through the sky. 3 minutes, Daniels updated grimly. Suddenly, the CEBS terminal chimed. A response had arrived, a video showing a Russian general in their strategic command bunker. We have analyzed your data, he said in heavily accented English. Our systems confirm anomalous intrusion patterns consistent with your assessment. We are maintaining alert status, but have suspended dead hand activation pending further verification. Relief washed over the command center, but Elaine's expression remained tense. It's not enough, she said. They're still at high alert, and our missiles reactivate in 2 minutes. We need to... The aircraft rocked violently as something struck its tail section. Warning lights flashed across every console. Direct hit, the pilot shouted. We're losing hydraulic pressure. Engine 3 is gone, reported the flight engineer. Fire suppression activated. Colonel Hargrove steadied himself against Elaine's console. Can you still transmit? She checked the systems. CEBS is operational but failing. We have maybe 30 seconds of connectivity. Make it count, he ordered. Elaine turned back to the camera, her face illuminated by emergency lighting as the aircraft fought to stay airborne. Russian command. We are under attack by Chinese forces attempting to provoke nuclear exchange between our nations. We request immediate data sharing on Chinese naval movements. Coordinate verification through Navstar frequencies Delta 7. The message sent just as the CEBS terminal went dark. 1 minute until missile reactivation, announced Major Daniels, his voice steady despite the chaos. Dr. Chen looked up from another console. New contacts detected. Russian fighters have engaged the Chinese J-20s. They're protecting us, Hargrove asked incredulously. They're protecting themselves, Elaine corrected. They understand the real threat now. The tactical display showed the air battle unfolding as Russian Su-57s intercepted the Chinese fighters, drawing them away from the damaged E-6B. 30 seconds to missile reactivation, Daniel said. On the main communication system, a new transmission broke through. The President of the United States. Elaine Winters, this is the President. We've received confirmation from Russian command. They're standing down their strategic forces. I repeat, the Russians are standing down. A collective breath of relief filled the command center, but it was short-lived. Sir, Elaine responded, the Chinese were only the first phase. The infiltration at the Pentagon went deeper than we realized. She pulled up intercepted communications on her screen, messages that had been flowing through the supposedly secure Pentagon systems. There's another team, already inside our missile command centers in Wyoming and Montana, she explained urgently. When our systems reactivate in 15 seconds, they'll have momentary access during the authentication reset. The President's voice hardened. What are you saying, Mrs. Winters? I'm saying, sir, Elaine replied, as warning alarms blared through the damaged aircraft, that we stopped World War III from starting between us and Russia. The missile command display flashed green as systems came back online. But someone else is about to launch our missiles anyway. Chapter 4. 0 hour. 200 words. The crippled E-6B Mercury struggled to maintain altitude. One engine gone, its control surfaces damaged by the missile impact. Inside the command center, the reactivation of America's nuclear weapon systems triggered a cascade of alerts and verification protocols. "Unauthorized access detected at Malmstrom Air Force Base Missile Control," shouted the monitoring officer. "Similar breach at F.E. Warren in Wyoming." Elaine's fingers raced across her terminal. "They're using the 30-second authentication window during reactivation, exactly as I feared." The president's voice crackled through the damaged communication system. "Winters, what options do we have?" "Sir, I need emergency override authority," she responded without hesitation. "Code Phoenix Sabre." A heavy pause filled the static-laced connection. "That authorization hasn't been used since 1962, the president finally said. "You're certain?" "Yes, sir. If those missiles launch, everything we've done means nothing. Phoenix Sabre authorized. God help us all." Elaine entered a complex sequence into her terminal, accessing a system so deeply classified that most nuclear commanders didn't know it existed. A presidential override designed as the absolute last resort. "Access granted," she confirmed, her screen displaying a stark warning. "Emergency missile deactivation sequence initiated. I'm transmitting individual disable codes to all ICBM silos showing compromise." Dr. Chen monitored another console. "Russians are maintaining stand down. They're tracking the Chinese naval fleet. 14 vessels now changing course away from Taiwan." "They blinked," Colonel Hargrove said, allowing himself a moment of hope. "Alert from Malmstrom," interrupted the communications officer. "Security forces engaging intruders in Launch Control Center Delta. Reports of multiple casualties." Elaine's screen flashed with new warnings. "They're fighting the deactivation. Someone at Malmstrom is manually overriding my commands." Major Daniels checked the aircraft status. "We can maintain flight for maybe 20 minutes. Hydraulic systems failing. We need to land soon." "Not until we secure those missiles," Elaine insisted, her focus unwavering despite the aircraft's alarming condition. "Colonel, I need a direct line to Malmstrom security forces." While Hargrove established the connection, Elaine continued her digital battle against the intruders. For every silo she locked down, they managed to maintain control of another. "This is Colonel Hargrove with Strategic Command. Patch me through to whoever's in charge on the ground." A strained voice responded through bursts of static and gunfire. "Captain Reynolds, sir!" "We've got 4 hostiles barricaded in Launch Control Center Delta. They've somehow bypassed security protocols and locked us out." "Captain, I'm putting someone on who can help you regain control," Hargrove said, nodding to Elaine. "Captain Reynolds, this is Elaine Winters with emergency override authority. I need you to access the hardwired failsafe in the center's sub-level mechanical room. Ma'am, that area's directly beneath the hostiles' position." "It's the only way," Elaine insisted. "The mechanical override can't be countered electronically." The aircraft lurched violently, dropping several hundred feet before the pilots could stabilize it. "Hydraulic pressure critical," warned the flight engineer. "We need to descend now." Dr. Chen grabbed Elaine's arm. "If we crash, we lose our connection to the missile fields." "Patch me through to the nearest ground station," Elaine ordered. "We need to transfer control before we're forced down." As the crew worked to establish the new connection, Captain Reynolds' voice returned. "We've reached the mechanical room, but we need the physical override sequence." "It's a 10-digit code," Elaine explained, followed by manual activation of the emergency cooling valves. "This will force the missiles into maintenance mode." She recited the code while watching her screen anxiously. 3 minutes until the compromised launch sites could initiate firing sequence. "Missile Silo 23 at Malmstrom, showing launch preparation," shouted the monitoring officer. "They've started the countdown." The president's voice cut through the chaos. "Winters, Can you stop it?" "Not remotely, sir," she admitted. "Whoa, everything depends on Captain Reynolds now." The command center fell into tense silence, broken only by the aircraft's distress alarms and the sporadic updates from ground forces. 2 minutes until potential launch. "Got it!" Reynolds' voice suddenly returned. "Entering the sequence now." Elaine watched her display intently. "Keep going, Captain. I'm seeing the first silos respond to your override." "Warning!" the tactical officer interrupted. "New contacts. 2 Chinese bombers approaching from the west, escorted by fighters." Colonel Hargrove checked the radar. "They're within strike range of our aircraft." "They know what we're doing," Dr. Chen said grimly. "They're making one last attempt to stop us." 1 minute to launch. The aircraft shuddered again as the pilots pushed the damaged systems to their limits, descending toward the cloud cover for protection. 15 silos neutralized, Elaine announced. 8 still under hostile control, including number 23. Captain Reynolds' voice returned, now tinged with desperation. "The hostiles have breached the mechanical room. We're taking fire." The sounds of gunfire intensified over the connection. "Keep going, Captain," Elaine urged. "You need to activate all 3 cooling valve stations." 30 seconds to launch. 2 stations activated, Reynolds reported between bursts of gunfire. Moving to the 3rd, his transmission cut off abruptly. "Reynolds!" Hargrove shouted. "Captain, respond!" 20 seconds. The command center crew watched in helpless silence as the countdown continued for Missile 23. The weight of millions of lives hung in the balance. 10 seconds. A new voice came through the static, younger, strained with pain. "Lieutenant Parker here. Captain's down, but I've reached the 3rd station." "Activate it now," Elaine commanded. 5 seconds. "Valve engaged," Parker reported. 3, 2, 1. Elaine's screen flashed with new information, and she released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Missile 23 deactivated," she confirmed. "All silos secured." Relief swept through the command center, but it was short-lived as the aircraft lurched violently to one side. "We're losing control surfaces," the pilot announced, "preparing for emergency landing. All stations secure for impact." As the crew braced themselves, a final transmission came through from the president. "Winters, whatever happens, you've done your country proud. All of you have." The E-6B descended through the storm clouds, its damaged frame groaning under the strain. Through the command center windows, the ground was becoming visible, rolling Montana plains stretching toward distant mountains. "Impact in 30 seconds, warned the pilot. "Brace! Brace!" Colonel Hargrove reached across and gripped Elaine's hand. "It was an honor, Winters." She nodded, her other hand still typing final commands to secure the missile network against any further intrusion attempts. Dr. Chen checked the global status display one last time. Russian forces standing down completely, Chinese fleet in full retreat. "We did it," Elaine said quietly. "The world gets to see another sunrise." The aircraft hit the ground hard, skidding across an open field, the fuselage groaning as it absorbed the impact. Emergency systems deployed automatically, filling the cabin with protective foam as the plane finally came to rest. In the silence that followed, Elaine found herself still conscious, pinned between her seat and a displaced console. Around her, others were moving, checking for injuries, confirming survival. Colonel Hargrove appeared through the settling dust, a cut across his forehead, but otherwise intact. "Status? Alive?" Elaine replied with a pained smile. "More than I expected 5 minutes ago." Through the cracked window, she could see military helicopters already approaching, the quick response team from a nearby base. As emergency crews worked to extract them from the wreckage, Elaine's secure tablet somehow still functioned. A final message appeared, direct from the Pentagon's highest security channels. Operation Jade Serpent neutralized. Chinese operatives in custody at all locations. Russian President Baranov requesting direct communication with the woman who prevented war. Stand by for transport to Washington. 24 hours ago, Elaine Winters had been invisible, the woman behind the desk whom everyone overlooked. Now, As she was carefully helped from the aircraft wreckage, she realized her anonymity was gone forever. "Mrs. Winters," said a young Air Force officer who had rushed forward to assist her, "the President is on the line for you." She took the offered phone, wincing at the pain in her ribs. "Mr. President." "Elaine," his voice was solemn, "I've just been briefed on your 1999 report, the one that got you demoted. You predicted this scenario almost exactly. 23 years too early, apparently," she replied. "No," he countered. 23 years of preparation. The right person, in the right place, at the right time. He paused. "The Joint Chiefs are waiting to debrief you. There's a lot of explaining to do about systems that apparently exist without proper oversight." Despite everything, Elaine found herself smiling. "Yes, sir. I've been preparing that briefing for 2 decades. As medical personnel checked her injuries, Elaine gazed at the horizon where the storm clouds were finally breaking, allowing streams of sunlight to touch the Montana plains. Somewhere beyond that horizon, millions of people were going about their lives, completely unaware of how close they had come to annihilation. The woman behind the desk had saved them all.